Hello, do come in.
Well, what to do and how to keep ourselves busy. That was a big thing, especially in the first lockdown when everything was shut and we couldn't go anywhere. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm not particularly artistic or creative, not crafty at all, but I had a go. I started off, I think, reading quite a lot. I took subscriptions out to Good Housekeeping magazine, to the Puzzler magazine. I've got books and I borrowed books. So I read, and luckily the weather was gorgeous to begin with. Even for April, it was lovely. So the garden with a book, a magazine, and I read quite a bit. But then you get a bit weary of reading. So I thought, what else can I have a go at? And I looked to the cupboard and I found some old pencils that were probably my daughter's from when she was at school. So I thought, I know, what do they do at art classes? Let's draw a bowl of fruit. Well, that was hilarious. I'll show you what it looked like. I'm not much for sewing really. I prefer to do a bit of knitting, but anyway, we've got Mike's mum's old sewing machine up in the loft. So we got that down and I made some capes for the children, superhero capes. I don't think that they haven't even seen them yet, so I'm hanging on to those, but I made some capes. My old dolly from when I was a little girl, so this dolly's got to be about 55 years old, 55 to 60 years old. I've still got her. Her name's Jacqueline. And I decided to make her some new clothes. So I did a bit of knitting there. I knitted her a dress and a few bit of hat and I think and some a scarf, just bits and pieces. So I did a bit of sewing, a bit of knitting. The sewing actually was some very old things that I started years and years ago, some cross stitch. I've got one cross stitch out, but it was so fine. I actually couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't follow it. I must have started it maybe 20 years ago. I don't know when I did cross stitch, but anyway, I tried it and I got myself in such a pickle that I decided to abandon it completely. So the tiny cross stitch I did abandon, but then I found another tray cloth that I had made, again, maybe 20 years ago, which was a much bigger design and a bigger pattern. So I completed that. So that was another thing that I'd finished. I'll show you what they look like. They're not bad. It kept me occupied for a while, let's say that. And another project that I started, many years ago. In fact, when I first started high school, age 12, there was a stamp club, like a extracurricular activity. I think it was a lunchtime club or something. And it was stamp collecting. And I'd never done anything like that. So I had a go at stamp collecting. And I had a stamp album with lots of stamps. Anyway, I kept on with it for maybe a year or so when I was, as I say, when I first started high school. And then it's like one of those things that just kind of like gets pushed to the side, really. And I think I just collected odd stamps and sets of stamps and just kind of like left them loose in there. Now, skip forward to 1981, and Mike and I had been married 2 years. We got married in April 1979. But in 1981, Mike and I emigrated to Canada, and to start a new adventure, new thing. Mike was born in Canada, so his parents went out there after the war, but they came back to England. I think a lot of people moved around after the Second World War. But anyway, Mike was born out there, so we had an introduction, as it were, to get to Canada. He had a Canadian passport because he was born there, even though he could have had a British passport as well because his parents were British. But anyway, to cut a long story short, 1981, Mike and I decided to emigrate to Canada. Big adventure. And when I went, obviously we had to sell our home, sell everything, get rid of everything. But I found the stamp album and I gave it to my sister and said, look after this for me. I'll come back and get it sometime. And she kept it all this time. Now, at the beginning of COVID, another thing that lots of people did, me included, go through your cupboards, go through your drawers, loft, anywhere that you hadn't looked at for a while. People cleared out cupboards. And my sister did the same. She cleared out a cupboard and she said, I found this stamp album. You gave it to me when you went to Canada. She said, here you are, have it back. So I got it back at the early part of this year during lockdown. And I know I looked at it and it was full of loose stamps, bits and paper and all sorts of things. Anyway, I decided to get some stamp adhesive, some proper things to put them in anyway, to stick them into the album. And I made that another one of my projects to complete during the first lockdown. And so I now have a 50-year-old stamp album with stamps and collections of stamps, pre-decimalisation. Anyway, it's all complete, it's all tidy, all the stamps are now fixed in the book. And I don't know what to do with it. Any suggestions? Just leave me a comment below.
I also sorted out a load of old recipe cards, magazine cuttings, those things that you save, and I put them all in a book. Wonderful, all my recipes in one place.
And of course, another activity that kept me busy was reading the stories for the children, for the grandchildren, which is why I made this YouTube channel. So I would read the stories. I had no idea about editing or adding things, so they're very, very amateurish, shall we say. But anyway, just reading the stories and put them on YouTube. It was quite time consuming. As I say, I don't profess to know how it all works, but this little iPad that I bought, I can't remember when I bought it actually, but I think it might have been at the beginning of lockdown. But the iPad seems to do it all for me, so that's pretty good. But no, reading stories, and I soon finished all the storybooks that I kept from my own children, which were up in the loft. So I borrowed storybooks from neighbours and people that I know, and just said, if you've got any little storybooks that I can borrow and read for my grandchildren, that would be lovely. So I did the stories, and that kept me busy as well. And it was whilst I was doing those that my grandson Buddy said to me, Nan, can you make us a story yourself? Can you make up a story? So that's an activity which I have yet to do, but it is on my list for hopefully this winter, to write a little storybook for my grandchildren. I've already invented the characters, or the main character, and I said to the grandchildren, I'm going to write a story about a little boy. What would you like his name to be? And the grandchildren want him to be called Michael. So Michael is going to be what my storybook is about. And Michael has a little sister. And I said to the children, what will the little sister be called? And don't let it be called Jeanette, just because the little boy is called Michael after Grandpa. I said, see if we can come up with something different. Anyway, they came up with Elizabeth. I don't think we know any Elizabeths, except the Queen. But anyway, there will be a storybook at some point, made up by me. I really don't know what it's going to be about. Probably just an ordinary little boy and what he gets up to. And I'm going to try and get Mike into doing the drawings for me. He's definitely got more of an artistic flair than me. Yet to broach that subject with him, but hopefully it will be story by Jeanette Allen and illustrated by Michael Allen, hopefully. And as I seem to have so many activities on the go, the rest of this will be in a part 2 video. So look for part 2, just coming up in a minute. Thank you.